people will not accept these things or understand them. But they're fundamental to spiritual unfoldment. You can take work to bed with you, but get an early night. 3 nights a week. For me, when I'm not on lecture tour, that is absolutely essential. When I'm on lecture tour, it's part of my sacrifice. You must create the right conditions in which you can seat yourself a retreat, or best of all within the aura of some highly spiritual person like a master or an initiate. The raising of the spiritual tone of the environment. Secondly, the spiritual target must be specific. You must know what you're doing. You must know what you're doing. You may say, well, if I don't know what samadhi is, how can I aspire to it? It's your problem. You should decide that you have certain spiritual goals. The horse trainer does not train his horse except, if it's a good one, that the horse be trained for a specific race. They may hold a horse back for 6 months and train him only for one race that is run over 1 mile 7.5 furlongs, around a course that bends to the right, around a course that is absolutely flat, for a day in which the going is going to be soft. Goals. That's what we are training this horse for. We will keep it unraced. We will give it the best stable boys, the finest oats, all because we want to win that race. 1 mile and 7.5 furlongs and nothing else. And they win. And they win. Examine your lives. Nothing wrong with comparing yourselves to a racing horse, especially if it's a thoroughbred. And see how often it isn't just like that. Your life. That the harder the going, the more weight they put on your back. And if that isn't happening to you, you should be questioning whether you have got the goals sorted out. The spiritual target must be specific, and the spiritual disciplines practiced in reaching for it equally specific. The bellows breath, which is calculated to be embedded in your consciousness, so that at the very critical moment, the razor-edge state, where you stand on that frontier that I demarcated a little earlier, and you need the passport to cross, you've got it. Not the wrong passport. Not the passport for a country that needs a visa that hasn't got a visa in it. The right passport. So the spiritual target must be specific, and the spiritual discipline must be specific for that specific target. There's no way, in order to be successful, to keep switching targets or to transfer your training from this target to another, so that the racehorse owner says, oh, they put up the price on the 2.5 mile race. Let's forget the 1 mile and 7.5 furlongs. Let's train it now for a 2.5 mile. It's got more money in it. This is why the initiations are demarcated very carefully. We haven't got much material on initiation, apart from what Bailey had to say, and which is obscure and much obscurer than even Anidescent on it. But it's all obscure. It's why we need to know what initiation we're working towards. What is our target? I'm very, very wary about setting targets, spiritual targets, because I've had long experience in this life and others. Good heavens, the Crusades alone were something. Lessons in targets that were switched, training that was aborted. And if I say that I will tour 100 cities in England, giving anything from 2 to 6 lectures in each, I know what I'm talking about. And I know that I must not deviate for 1 second. That everything I do must be directed towards that overwhelming demand. And I raise all hell if it is threatened. It's the same for you, no different. Set yourself targets, spiritual targets, and train yourself for them. Say to yourself, what am I going to do over the next 2 years? What is relevant to me? In the field of service, in the field of study, in the field of meditation. And do it. You ask how to use fire, I'm telling you how to use it. And when you do these things, the fire will flow through you. And you yourself will develop fiery aspiration of the 9th house, which achieves the highest spiritual goals. The spiritual effort is far more important than the load that you carry. How many times haven't I said to you, it is the effort that you put into it that is important. Some people carry huge loads. Some people carry huge loads very well. Good heavens. Some businessmen can carry massive loads of work and still get in their game of golf every day. Equally so, in our field, people can carry huge loads with comparatively little effort. But let me tell you that it is the spiritual effort that is more important than the workload that you carry. It is the effort, spiritual effort, that is more important than the workload you carry. That's thirdly. Fourthly, the disciplines are not to be picked at and played with. Exercising the disciplines, or if you like, spiritual training. Spiritual training, that's what it is. Must be maintained. You cannot train and stop and train and stop and train and stop. The training must be maintained. There must be no gaps in it. Doesn't matter how strong Neptune is in your chart, or Cancerian forces. There must be no gap in it. This is what we mean by staying power. Both on the sports field and inwardly, spiritually. If you don't maintain a gradient of persistently increasing aborts. And the nearer you are to your spiritual target, the more careful you must be about maintaining your spiritual impetus, your disciplines. Not to be drawn aside by this advice or that advice, or cajoling, or because of events around you. No matter what goes on in the outer world, nothing in the outer world should spoil the exercise of inner spiritual discipline. And fifthly, the more highly spiritually disciplined you are, the greater the likelihood of deconditioning. The horse trainer calls it breakdown. The horse broke down. It was being developed and being developed and being developed, but then it broke down. And the breakdown is most likely to occur, the deconditioning is most likely to occur at the moment when you are most spiritually disciplined, at your highest point of attainment. That's when the breakdown is most likely to occur. And it is under deconditioning, deflation, if you like. It is under such circumstances that the disciple has to work. And you know that the masters respect those laws as well. Many of you possibly whine to the master or to your higher self. It isn't fair. I get all the donkey work. I have to make up for the young souls. I don't get any consideration for it. It is for your benefit that they maintain in their influencing of you those kinds of principles for your own good. Then you are the racehorse trained to an inch. Not overtrained, not deconditioned, absolutely rearing to go. Then you see them come into the parade ring. You wouldn't think they were animals at all. They're as nervous as anything. They're on edge. They're ready for one thing and one thing alone, that race. They've been prepared for it for months and months. They've been trained to draw down from the Atmic plane fire, a fire that will help them break records. It's true of the physical, and it's true of us spiritually. Lastly today, I'm going to intrude and give you some qualities of the aspro essence of rock rose. Now, if I remember rightly, I gave you vervain last week. Did I? Vervain? Well, it's rock rose now. I opened my essay with rock rose to end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to, from Hamlet. The other day I was travelling into Wimbledon by train. The train was empty, leaving Barnet Station, High Barnet. 2 of us in the carriage. I was sitting midway in the carriage. A young man got in, sat right up the front. We'd pulled into a station. We were just about to go out when there was a massive report, a huge bang. Some of you must have heard them in the tubes before. As something in the electrical box cut out, I suppose. A huge bang. Threw this kid on the floor, and there was an absolute funk after that. He came down and sat opposite me. I hadn't turned a hair, but that was just because I was further away, I suppose. And he was really another half an hour before he could settle down. Very embarrassing to him. His spectacles went on one side and his hair was all over the place, and he was agitated. He couldn't even light himself a fan. That's the ideal situation for Rock Rose. Ideal situation for Rock Rose when you have a shock. Or you're walking down, you're going down the staircase at night, and you're in your slippers, which are soft, or perhaps your stocking feet. And you know how dangerous that is on carpet on the stairs. Much more dangerous than shoes. And so you slip, and you clutch around you for the banisters. And you save yourself, but your heart is thumping like this, a physiological reaction. That's the time when you use Rock Rose. Something that may go on for quite a time. Or you're carrying somebody's giving you something to look at, and it slips and you nearly drop it. It was close. Rock Rose. Or you may anticipate a series of shocks. You may anticipate a series of shocks. Perhaps you're waiting for 6 examination results in your medical finals, and they're spread over 4 days. That's the kind of time when you need to take Rock Rose in advance and prepare yourself. You can practically say, well, the postman's usually here by 9:30. If I take my Rock Rose at 9:15 and follow it up with another one at 9:30, I should just about be ready for the arrival of the postman with the examination result. Yes, it's the common little anecdotes of human existence that make these remedies not only greatly loved, but practical to remember them by. It's also the time when you're under very strong nervous tension and anxiety that puts your whole solar plexus region into a knot, so that you can't eat anything and hold it. You don't want to eat anything. And the main sensation is this tight, anxious knot in the solar plexus center. I've had that twice in my life. Once for 2 weeks, being shelled by 210 millimeter naval guns in Libya. I don't want it again, thank you very much. Shells dropping regularly just to keep you awake. Anxiety, which contracts the stomach so that you don't want to eat, or what you do eat can hardly be held. But the remedy really comes into its own with regard to children. Really comes into its own with regard to children. Because it is the remedy for nightmare and night terror. Now, a nightmare is accompanied by a bad dream. And the child may awaken with great fear and a sense of suffocation. In the old days, it was believed, the whole word derivation comes from this, it was believed that in a nightmare you had a burden on your chest. Maybe it came from the fact that the cat was sleeping on top of you, or that the bedclothes were too heavy. But certainly in the old days, a nightmare indicated that there was a great female dweller seated on top of you. And that's how the word derives. A bad spirit seated on top of you, and the astral, well, presumably the astral body apprehends this and begins to try and communicate to the gross physical brain to stir it to awaken, and produces the bad dream. We have a very good picture of this mythological factor. Maybe it is more true than the world thinks. What book is that in, Mark? Very well. Do you know your books like that? Now you know what I've been talking about all afternoon. It's also in alcoholism, but I bet you didn't know that. Those are your textbooks. The dream is usually vivid, and the adult or the child can usually recall it. Here you take half a tablet of the aspro essence of rock rose, or rather the child does, and that will calm him down. If necessary, it can be a full tablet. If the nightmare has really been difficult, split it into two halves, give one to begin with, and if there's no calming down, a second half. If the nightmares are persistent, a feature of the person, of the child's daily life or nightly life, you must suspect a dweller. Suspect a dweller. You should also be very careful to allow the child to have a light in the bedroom. By right, it's his right to have the light in the bedroom, which will help to remove any astral entities which can't really get very far in a strongly or in a lit room. You should supervise the child's reading matter, take away any horror comics, and it's extraordinary how the rock rose type loves horror comics. Sometimes the most nervous individuals like to have the greatest frights. I think it gets their adrenaline going, I don't know. Supervise the child's reading matter and see that the television programs are carefully vetted. No horror, comics, violent television. Now, night terrors are slightly different. A night terror called pavor nocturnus. The child awakes screaming, has had no dream that he can recall. The fear continues for a period. They are at first frequently asleep when they scream, then they slowly awaken, and the screaming continues. The fear is still present. No memory of any dream or any visual experience inwardly. Now, this condition is usually caused by eddies and currents in the astral world that sometimes flow backwards and forwards, sometimes carry astral shells of individuals, especially any related to the area or the environment. The astral sheath or body of the child, depending on how old he is out of alignment with the physical because the child's asleep. It becomes alerted to these things that are roaming around it, and it makes its endeavor to inform the sleeping brain or to alert the sleeping brain about these bizarre matters or morbid materials that are floating around. So the brain is alerted with any serious threat from an astral entity. The astral body or sheath will endeavor to alert the sleeper. It's very rare for this to occur in adults, very rare for it to occur in adults, but it is fairly common in children. The child is rudely awakened in a state of terror, and he cannot name the fear. He cannot name the fear. And what was the cause of it all. And so the suggestion there is that the rock rose should be supplemented with, yes, say it out aloud, mimulus. Aspen. Sorry there, aspen. Mimulus for named, aspen for unnamed fear. Sometimes you can use this remedy well on domestic animals. We've got a cat that gets very nervous with all sorts of things. It used to do that in its last life as well. If the garbage truck arrives and thunders down the drive, this cat is upset straight away. So you can take the aspro essence and crush it and throw it onto their tongues, just open their mouths and throw it onto their tongues and put some milk down, and not more than half an aspen, obviously, for a tiny animal like that. The other thing that you can do, of course, is to anticipate conditions arising for the animal. Guy Fawkes night is a really good night to consider your animals in advance. I had an Alsatian once as a little boy, and we thought we were being very clever and kind to lock him up in the house whilst we let our fireworks off, which we did, and they used to be horrific things in those days. Great big bangs, and all the old ladies used to take cover and things like that. When we came into the house, we found that the dog had gone straight to the couch in terror and had sat on the couch and torn the whole couch up, clawing at it. So animals can be very highly strung, and when you have got the 4th of July or the 5th of November coming up, good thing to put a mat in the bathroom, let the dog go into the bathroom, And in advance, give it rock rose. Give it rock rose in advance. Now, what about the rock rose type at its best? The person who is a rock rose type and displays the qualities that rock rose gives you and strengthens you with. He is a calm person and doesn't flap. He is considerate and dependable in a crisis. A calm, considerate, and dependable person in a crisis. He is sought after by his friends for comfort. They come to him for comfort. They may not say they're coming to him for comfort, but they creep into his aura when they feel badly beaten and are comforted by it. Cats will frequently do this with a human being. They will have had a scary episode of some sort. Perhaps the Hoover's been on. Perhaps they've had a brush with cats outside and been rushing around in the undergrowth, and they're cold and wet and miserable and hungry, and they will come and seek you out and just want to settle down by you and be smoothed over. And Mark is very good at that. I haven't got the time for it, but he's very good at it. So the cats will seek him out. That's the type of thing you want. Rather, that's the rock rose type. A person sought after by friends, family, and household pets when they need consoling or are ruffled by some episode. The rock rose vibrations are soothing and integrating. That's the important thing, integrating. I'm all shook up. I'm all over the place. Rock rose for when you're all shook up. Their attitudes are calming and integrating in the face of danger, or in the face of threat or temptation. They are the great Stoics. They're even heroic. All right. Well, you've had a mixed bag this afternoon. Any more questions? Judy, I have some letters for you downstairs, yeah. Sorry. The flower remedy can be used as, shall we say, a more chronic condition, where the asproessence is much better is when the situation arises, can be anticipated, is episodic, and not a sort of chronic thing. That's for improving your dream life, didn't you? Yeah. You had 4 vivid dreams straight afterwards, Lorenthus. I asked you that because you're sitting next to somebody that would like to hear that, or near to them. Yes? On tour we have scary things happen. I wish somebody would document all these things because they make a good biography one day. Last night we were talking in Basingstoke, and I hadn't had a moment's peace for 7 hours, so I crept out before the lecture and sat in the car. Before doing so, I took my toilet bag into the men's lavatories, and I cleaned my teeth and got myself straightened up a little bit for the lecture, and I just had 5 minutes to spare, so I thought I'd go outside and sit in the car. I had the bag with me and didn't want to take it out because I needed it in the interval. So as I came out of the gents, I just put it on the floor outside in the passageway, and I went and sat down in the car and went into a semi-state. Suddenly, the janitor of the town hall shot out of the front door of the town hall with my little case in his hand and gingerly put it on the ground and bolted inside. and I jumped out of the car and ran after him and caught him just in time before he emptied the audience out of the hall. He had thought that it was a bomb in the quite rightly so, quite rightly. He did all the right things. He picked it up gingerly, rushed it out, put it down, ran inside, go upstairs, warn the people, get them out. I don't know what door he would have put them out to, because they would have walked over the bomb. So I had to grab him and calm him down and so on. And that, by the way, is a damn good thing for Rock Rose. He could have done with Rock Rose on that occasion. There you are. Episodes in life. All right, well, if we could approach all the... where the hell was I bathing? So if we could approach all the flower remedies with anecdotes like that, they would become very easy to us, wouldn't they? Go and have your tea.